July 31st, 1944, just before dusk, at German Army Group B headquarters near La Roche-Guyon. The Seine flows quietly below the chateau, indifferent to the maps spread across the table. A field report arrives from the west, then another. Both place American armored units south of Avranches, along the road network leading into Brittany. The coordinates are precise, too precise to ignore. Avranches, the gateway town controlling the narrow land bridge out of Normandy, was expected to hold for days. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, responsible for the defense of northern France, studies the map in silence. According to German estimates after Operation Cobra, Allied exploitation should still be limited by congestion and supply. American forces were expected to pause, reorganize, and refuel. Instead, the reports describe movement of over 60 kilometers in less than 24 hours. Columns advancing day and night, minimal halts. No sign of the operational pause German planners depended on. A staff officer points to the unit identification. U.S. Third Army. Lieutenant General George S. Patton, activated only days earlier, already pushing through the Avranches bottleneck. Rommel traces the route with his finger. If Patton's armor is already past Avranches, then the German 7th Army's left flank is exposed. Reserves positioned east of the Vire River are now facing the wrong direction. The room grows tense as additional data arrives. Radio intercepts confirm American command nets moving rapidly west and south. Prisoners taken near Coutances report continuous movement, little sleep, and fuel trucks following close behind the tanks. German defensive theory is built on measured tempo. Hold, counterattack, restore the line. Nothing in these reports fits that sequence. Rommel straightens slowly. If the Americans are truly moving this fast, the problem is no longer local. It is systemic. And the realization is only beginning. Late July 1944. Normandy is no longer a static battlefield. Operation Cobra begins on July 25th after a massive aerial bombardment west of Seine. More than 3,000 American bombers pound a narrow sector of the German front. By July 27th, the German 7th Army is fractured. Entire regiments are reduced to fragments, command lines cut, reserves mispositioned. What had been a hedgerow war of meters becomes a war of kilometers. The breakout is not clean, but it is decisive. U.S. 7th Corps pushes south through Marigny and Coutances. German units retreat in disorder, often without clear orders or fuel. On August 1, 1944, the American Third Army becomes operational. Lieutenant General George S. Patton takes command with 3 corps available. 8th Corps turns west into Brittany. 15th and 12th Corps prepare to drive south and east. German commanders expect a pause. Doctrine suggests the Americans must stop to reorganize. Fuel, ammunition, and command coordination should impose limits. Those limits never arrive. The road network south of Seine opens like a door left unlocked. Avranches falls on July 30th. The narrow causeway, once a choke point, becomes a funnel for movement. German intelligence still views this as exploitation, not transformation. The assumption remains that momentum will fade, that the enemy will slow, consolidate, and become predictable again. But the battlefield has changed shape. The bocage gives way to open country. Tank formations stretch out, no longer boxed by hedges and sunken lanes. For the first time since D-Day, speed becomes the dominant factor. Not firepower, not mass. Speed. German command has not adjusted to this reality yet. The reports reaching Rommel are treated as anomalies, not warnings. That misreading will soon prove costly. Because the breakout is no longer widening, it is accelerating. German operational planning in Normandy rests on a familiar assumption. The Allies advanced deliberately, pause to resupply, then resume under heavy coordination. That rhythm has defined Allied operations since North Africa. Field manuals emphasize tempo as a controllable variable, force the enemy to slow, then strike with reserves. The concept depends on predictability more than strength. In late July 1944, German staff officers still expect that pattern to reassert itself. American logistics should impose limits. Fuel convoys must catch up. Command posts must stabilize before further movement. Those expectations shape every decision. Panzer reserves are held back east of the Vire River. Units are positioned to counter a renewed push toward Saint-Lô or Caumont. No one plans for a deep, continuous exploitation beyond Avranches. Rommel himself has argued repeatedly for elastic defense, mobile reserves, rapid counterattacks. But even those ideas assume time exists to react. The American breakout challenges that belief. U.S. armored columns are not pausing after contact. They bypass resistance, leaving infantry to follow. Road junctions are seized before German units realize they are threatened. Reports from the front describe tank battalions advancing 30 to 40 kilometers per day. German planners calculate half that speed under ideal conditions. The discrepancy is dismissed as exaggeration. Maps still show front lines. Arrows remain short and controlled. The possibility that the front itself is dissolving is not yet acknowledged. German command cycles are slow by design. Orders move upward for approval. Counter-orders move downward through disrupted communications. Every hour lost compounds the problem. By the time staff officers begin to question their assumptions, the data has already overtaken them. The American advance is not waiting for permission from German doctrine. It is moving on its own terms, and the illusion of predictable tempo is about to collapse under its weight. By August 1st, 1944, the first assumptions begin to fail under scrutiny. German reconnaissance flights report armored columns far beyond expected contact lines. The sightings are no longer isolated or uncertain. Near Avranches, U.S. vehicles stream south across the Saloon River crossings. Engineers have cleared the bottleneck faster than anticipated. Traffic control units keep columns moving without long halts. German forward observers report dust clouds stretching for kilometers. This is not a probing force. It is sustained movement at scale. Rommel's staff begins to mark the map in pencil, then ink. Each update pushes the American position farther out of alignment with German planning tables. Timelines drafted only days earlier are quietly crossed out. Radio intercepts add weight to the picture. American command nets shift rapidly, indicating advancing headquarters. Signals intelligence suggests corps-level elements relocating, not just forward units. The implications are immediate. German reserves positioned to counter a limited penetration are now misaligned. Units of the 2nd Panzer Division and Panzer Lehr sit too far east, facing threats that no longer exist. Field reports from the 7th Army grow sharper in tone. Orders to assemble counterattacks are issued, then rescinded. Fuel shortages and air attacks delay movements by critical hours. The German command system begins to show strain. Decision cycles lag behind events on the ground. By the time an order reaches a battalion, the situation it addresses has already changed. Rommel studies the pattern emerging across the map. The American advance is not widening evenly. It is flowing through weak points, ignoring traditional lines. This is the first clear fracture. Not yet a collapse, but a loss of coherence. And once coherence is gone, control soon follows. August 2nd, 1944. The pace accelerates beyond recovery. American columns no longer probe for weakness. They exploit it without hesitation. Patton's 3rd Army pushes west and south in diverging arcs. 8th Corps drives toward Rennes and the Brittany ports. 15th Corps turns east, aiming for Le Mans and the open country beyond. German reserves attempt to respond. Elements of the 2nd Panzer Division receive orders to redeploy south. Movement begins late under constant Allied air attack. The roads are no longer neutral ground. Fighter bombers strike columns in daylight. Bridges become choke points under fire. Reports from the field grow urgent. Units arrive piecemeal, not concentrated. Battalions meant to counterattack find their objectives already bypassed. Near Mortain, German commanders attempt to re-establish a line. The terrain offers little cover. American armor flows around resistance rather than breaking against it. The time gap becomes decisive. Patton's forward elements advance faster than German orders can travel. Command posts relocate twice within a single day. Rommel receives updates from multiple directions. Each confirms the same pattern. The Americans are not fixing the front. They are dissolving it. German 7th Army headquarters struggles to maintain situational awareness. Maps lag reality by hours. Communications fail under pressure and movement. What was once a single rupture now multiplies. Gaps widen into corridors. Corridors become avenues of advance. Rommel recognizes the escalation for what it is. This is no longer a temporary exploitation. It is operational collapse in motion. And the data still hasn't finished arriving. By August 3, 1944, the evidence converges beyond denial. Rommel's headquarters receives a flood of synchronized reports, all pointing in the same direction. The American advance is not fragmentary. It is coordinated, deliberate, and accelerating. Captured prisoners provide the first clarity. Tank crews identify units from the U.S. 3rd Army, 15th Corps. They describe continuous movement since crossing Avranches, with refueling conducted on the roadside. Engines rarely shut down. Maps are updated again. Patton's forward elements are now approaching Le Mans, over 100 kilometers from the original breakout zone. The distance is not theoretical. Road junctions are reported seized in sequence, hour by hour. Radio intercepts confirm Corps headquarters relocating forward at an unprecedented tempo. Command nets shift frequency and location faster than German analysts can track. This is not reconnaissance in force. It is full exploitation. Fuel data removes the final doubt. American supply columns are moving in parallel, not behind the advance. Logistics has been reshaped to match speed, not restrain it. German planners had calculated advance rates based on methodical Allied doctrine. Those tables no longer apply. Patton's army is operating on a different rhythm, compressing decision time to hours instead of days. Rommel studies the numbers in silence. Kilometers per day, hours between sightings, confirmed unit identifications. Each figure strips away another assumption. If these movements continue unchecked, German forces in Normandy risk envelopment from the rear. The threat is no longer localized to Brittany. It points east toward the Seine and beyond. The illusion of control collapses under the weight of data. Now there is nothing left to reinterpret, only something left to say. Early August 1944 at Army Group B headquarters near Roche-Guyon. The map room is quiet now, stripped of speculation and debate. Only confirmed reports remain, marked in ink, not pencil. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel stands over the table, eyes fixed on the western edge of France. Le Mans is circled. So is Alençon. The distances between markings are no longer theoretical. An officer summarizes the latest update. Patton's armored spearheads have advanced more than 100 kilometers in roughly 48 hours. German reserves have not made contact. Rommel does not respond immediately. He exhales slowly, then speaks, his voice measured, almost flat. "This is no longer a breakthrough," he says. "It is a pursuit." The room remains still. Rommel continues, choosing his words carefully. "The enemy is moving faster than we can shift a single division. What we planned for does not exist anymore." These remarks are later recalled by staff officers not as a speech, but as a diagnosis. There is no anger in his tone, no theatrics. only recognition. Rommel gestures toward the map. "If this continues," he says, "the front will not bend. It will simply fall away." The statement lands heavily. German defensive doctrine has always assumed the front as a stable reference. Rommel has just acknowledged that reference is gone. For a moment, no one speaks. The meaning is clear without explanation. Speed has broken the rules the defense depends on. Rommel straightens and steps back from the table. The decision is no longer about holding ground. It is about salvaging forces before they are cut off. What Rommel has said cannot be taken back, and the consequences will begin immediately. The room moves again almost at once. Orders are drafted without delay, stripped of nuance and conditional language. What remains is urgency. Rommel directs staff to prepare emergency redeployments eastward. Elements of the 7th Army are ordered to pull back from exposed positions. The goal is no longer containment, but avoidance of encirclement. Telephone lines crackle as commands are passed down the chain. Divisions already under pressure receive instructions to disengage where possible. In practice, many cannot. Units attempting to move discover the roads are already compromised. American air power patrols relentlessly. Columns break apart under attack, vehicles abandoned where fuel runs out. Panzer formations meant to counterattack are reassigned mid-movement. Some never reach their new objectives. Others arrive too late to influence events. At Mortain, preparations begin for a desperate counterstroke. The intent is to cut Patton's supply lines and restore coherence. The timing is already unfavorable. German command acknowledges the shift in tone. Reports no longer ask whether the front can be restored. They ask how long formations can survive intact. Rommel authorizes withdrawals that would have been unthinkable days earlier. Terrain once designated as a holding line is quietly relinquished. Maps are redrawn with fallback positions instead of counterattack arrows. The aftershock spreads outward from headquarters. Field commanders sense the change immediately. Orders now assume loss, not recovery. Patton's speed has not only shattered German planning, it has forced a psychological inversion of command. From this point forward, German decisions are reactive, always one step behind, always responding to movement already completed. The realization spoken aloud has reshaped reality, and the battlefield will reflect it by morning. The collapse is not caused by firepower alone. German forces still possess tanks, artillery, and experienced commanders. What they lack is time. Patton's Third Army operates inside the German decision cycle. Movement precedes reaction. Orders arrive after the situation has already shifted. The core advantage is tempo. American armored divisions advance without waiting for full consolidation. Resistance is bypassed, not reduced, leaving German units isolated and irrelevant. German command doctrine depends on sequential clarity. Identify the main effort, shift reserves, launch a coordinated counterattack. Patton removes that clarity. Multiple thrusts create uncertainty. Every gap looks temporary until it suddenly isn't. Logistics plays an unexpected role. American fuel and ammunition columns move forward aggressively. Supplies chase the advance instead of restraining it. German planners assume logistics impose a natural break. In Normandy, that assumption fails. The road network south of Avranches enables parallel movement at scale. Air superiority compounds the problem. German daylight movement becomes hazardous. Each delay magnifies the speed differential. The result is systemic disruption. Divisions are committed late. Corps boundaries lose meaning. Front lines dissolve into scattered contact points. Patton's approach values momentum over positional security. It accepts risk to generate shock. German doctrine cannot respond fast enough to neutralize it. Rommel understands this too late. The enemy has transformed speed into a weapon, not through theory but execution. Once tempo becomes asymmetric, no tactical correction can restore balance. The damage is already structural, and its effects will spread far beyond Normandy. By August 4th and 5th, 1944, the effects become visible across the map. German formations no longer retreat in sequence. They fragment under pressure, each unit reacting to a different emergency. Patton's spearheads reach Le Mans on August 8th. The city, once a German logistical hub, falls with minimal resistance. 7th Army's rear is now exposed. German attempts to re-establish cohesion fail repeatedly. Orders to hold are overtaken by events. Units arrive to find positions already bypassed or irrelevant. The front ceases to exist as a line. Instead, it becomes a series of isolated engagements, each one disconnected from the larger picture. Supply breakdown accelerates the collapse. Fuel shortages immobilize tanks. Ammunition trucks are destroyed or abandoned under air attack. German communications degrade rapidly. Field commanders rely on couriers when radios fail. Situational awareness narrows to what can be seen directly. Opportunities for encirclement multiply. American units push east and north simultaneously. German forces are squeezed into narrowing corridors. The initiative remains firmly with the Americans. German reactions lag by hours, then days. Every attempted correction arrives too late. Rommel's warnings prove accurate. The front does not bend. It recedes unevenly, then breaks apart. What began as a breakout has become a race the German command system cannot win, and the consequences are no longer reversible. By mid-August 1944, the effects of Patton's tempo extend far beyond the original breakout zone. What collapses in Normandy cannot be rebuilt elsewhere. The rhythm of German defense is permanently broken. As American forces drive east, the retreat becomes contagious. Units fall back not because of direct pressure, but because neighboring formations have vanished. The sense of a continuous front never returns. The German High Command attempts to impose order. New defensive lines are proposed along the Seine. On paper, the distances appear manageable. In reality, the problem remains time. American columns reach river crossings faster than German engineers can prepare demolitions. Bridges fall intact more often than planned. The failure is not one of courage or numbers. It is structural. German command systems require synchronization that no longer exists. Patton's advance forces German formations into a reactive posture across France. Every movement becomes a response, never an initiative. Reserves are spent simply trying to survive. The consequences compound daily. Delays increase vulnerability to air attack. Losses reduce mobility. Reduced mobility creates further delays. By late August, Allied forces approach Paris. German withdrawals accelerate into strategic retreat. The possibility of stabilizing the Western Front fades entirely. Rommel's realization in early August proves decisive. The speed he identified is not an anomaly. It becomes the defining feature of the campaign. Once tempo is lost at this scale, recovery is impossible. The war in the West has entered a new phase. The maps from early August 1944 tell a quiet story. Lines drawn in confidence fade into arrows, pointing backward. Distances once measured in days shrink to hours. Rommel's words echo beyond the room where they were spoken. They mark the moment German command acknowledged a truth it could no longer deny. Speed had become decisive. The collapse does not arrive as a single event. It unfolds unevenly across roads, bridges, and abandoned vehicles. Each retreat confirms what was already understood. Patton's advance does not win the war alone, but it changes how the war is fought. Tempo replaces mass as the dominant force. For German commanders, the loss is not only territory, it is the loss of control over time itself. Decisions arrive too late to matter. The lesson is enduring. In modern war, the most dangerous enemy is not always the strongest. It is the one who arrives before you can react. Rommel recognized that moment in Normandy, not through theory but through maps that refused to align, through numbers that no longer fit doctrine. By the time the truth is spoken aloud, its effects are already in motion. No order can reverse them. No plan can restore the old rhythm. History often turns not on a single blow but on realization, a moment when certainty collapses under fact, and nothing moves faster than that.